everything that we study, though, and every experience we have has a cumulative effect in adding up to our body of knowledge. And your guides and angels will use everything in your brain. Every experience is sort of like a database to show you symbols and signs and make your life more interesting, help you make more decisions with calm and peace.
So hello and welcome to Intuitive Connection. I'm your host, intuitive counselor and spiritual guide, Victoria Shaw. And today I'm super excited because we have a guest, and I'm just so excited to interview you, Susanne. Our guest is Susanne Wilson, and I will do my best to introduce you. She is known as the Carefree Medium. She's an intuition educator, spiritual teacher, medium with abilities that have undergone scientific study and validation, which is something I totally am excited to hear about. And Susanne and I met through Soul Search, and one of those peeps at the moment I experienced you and experienced your energy, I was like, oh, I need to know more. So I'm excited for this conversation, and I'm excited to share your magic with my listeners.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be with you, and I can't wait to see how this unfolds.
It's always an adventure, right? So I was doing a little bit of pre-listening to some other things that you've been on and checking out your website and your amazing podcast. And my understanding is that your story began at the beginning. Like you had these abilities, these mediumship abilities turned on full blast when you were a child. Is that accurate?
I would say so. And it really hit home that something was different about me when I started school. I went to Head Start, which is a program for low income families to get your child into like a preschool before kindergarten starts and get them a meal and get them socialized. And I was real appreciative of it, but I didn't understand that the other kids didn't see the world the same way I saw it. And I mean, objectively seeing lights and figures and spirits around the room. And so I would talk about what I saw and it would get me in trouble. And it was kind of scary. And then through my school years, I got bullied quite a bit. Victoria, I could not keep my mouth shut, you know? And I started pretending to be sick to not go to school because I was like, I have to say something, but I got labeled crazy Susie. I can remember having skinned knees a lot from being pushed down on the asphalt by other kids. So I pretended to be sick, and I was missing so much of it that my mom tried to talk to me and I wasn't very forthcoming. And she had her dad talk to me, my precious granddad, who I spent the weekends with, my granny and granddad, and I confided in him what was going on and the things I saw. And to my surprise, he said, "I see them too."
Wow.
Yeah, and he was a Presbyterian minister and very spiritual guy, and that really helped me out. But I put things away. I put the abilities away for my young adult life just to fit in and get along. So, yeah, it was always there.
Wow. I mean, that's a really powerful story. And do you think, I mean, I think for some of us, they're just turned on so loud, so strong, right at the gate. And then for others, and here's what I believe, but you tell me what you think. I think everyone is intuitive, everyone has mediumship abilities. It just plays differently for everyone. And some of us, it's just really strong, really direct, really bright, out of the gate, and or we don't get the memo early on to turn them down when everybody else hops on that train.
Yeah, you're reminding me of people telling me I'm a late bloomer to all of this.
Right.
And then you talk to them and you find out, gosh, no, they had so many insights during their lives and they don't really give themselves credit for being an intuitive soul that has a body. It is something that we all have, and every path is different. And some people get a wake-up call, like a near-death experience or a plant medicine journey, or a loved one that's really close to them passes and they want to understand where they went, or the grief sort of gets them, going down a certain path. So eventually a lot of people will realize, I think I've got more skills and abilities than I'm actually utilizing, and I want to figure this stuff out. And that's where people like you and I come in to help out.
Yeah, for sure. And you had a wake up call, right? So you put this stuff away because you didn't want to get bullied anymore. You wanted to fit in, but it came back. Can you share about that experience?
I was in my young adult life going to conferences and seminars and psychic development classes and even a mediumship development circle. But I did want to keep it really on the down low so that I could fit in. I had gotten my education. I got a bachelor's, like you, very educated. I got a bachelor's in management, my master's in public affairs policy. It's called an MPA.
Right.
And I had a very responsible position in academe as a director for a center for leadership in a university. I went the private sector and was in the human resources development. I was working on my PhD, in fact, and working my full-time job. And it was like amassing, you know, material wealth and stuff. And I had a near-death experience. Now, this is 2007. So not that long ago, but what happened was I had anaphylaxis and I was able to get the injection that I needed to not stay dead. I mean,
Okay.
my heart did stop, my breathing
Wow.
stopped, my heart did stop, but not for very long. And after that, Victoria, I was on all the time. There was no pretending like I wasn't different. And frankly, I didn't feel like I wanted to be that corporate person anymore. I wanted to explore these other things. And so that was a wake up call for me for sure. And it resulted in me simplifying my life. Now I meet people and say, well, I have a lot of gifts too, but should I quit my day job? And should I pursue this? Should I do that? And I just say to them, look, the source is going to use you and place wherever you are to bring more peace, more joy, more compassion to the world. You don't necessarily have to quit your job, but anyone can take some time and explore their own intuitive abilities, the clairs that you and I love to talk about, the clairsentience, claircognizant, clairvoyance, clairaudience. And you don't even have to know the names of these things. You need to know to ground yourself and tune in and pay attention to the guidance. I think I had a path that I needed to have all these professional life experiences so I could relate to a diverse group of people and speak in their vocabulary and also be a real organized teacher like you. I mean, we love to come up with a curriculum and we know how to measure results and satisfaction of our students and all those sorts of things. So it's like your life, none of those experiences are wasted. They give you the abilities and the structure to leverage your gifts in this life. And it can start as simple as waking up in the morning and going, yay, I'm here. Thanks for this gift of another day. Make my lessons as beneficial, but as easy as possible. Give me work to do. Show me how to do it. Let me make a difference in the world. And then go through the day and pay attention to what's happening. But I really want to say that I lost track of all that when I was caught up in going to school, getting ahead in my career, and not particularly being a very spiritual person, although I was going to the classes. I was pretty driven. So we do change, we do evolve. Everything that we study, though, and every experience we have has a cumulative effect in adding up to our body of knowledge. And your guides and angels will use everything in your brain. Every experience is sort of like a database to show you symbols and signs and make your life more interesting, help you make more decisions with calm and peace. So when people say, well, Susanne, you were born that way, what is that? Where does that leave me? And I just say, you were born your way and you have your gifts. And now your job is to open
Yeah.
yours.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's so beautifully put and beautifully said. And the other thing I love that you said in there is that you don't have to do what we do, right? To use your intuition and to benefit from it. You just don't. It's about like living your life. I always say it's like about living your life more soulfully, more in alignment. That's my Soul Search TV show, living in alignment, right? It's seeing and experiencing your life more from that soul lens. Because that's how I understand my intuition works for me. That's what it does for me. And so you can do that anywhere. You can do that in your corporate job. You can do that as a parent. You can do that as a partner. You can do that as a friend. You can do that at the beach on vacation. Like, if you feel the call to leave the corporate job and become an intuitive coach, you go, like we either one of us can support you in figuring out how you might want to do that. But it's not just a gift. I mean, it's a gift we all have. It's your intuition is the unique gift for you wherever you are in your life, whatever you're choosing to do, wherever you're choosing to focus it. It's not just limited to people that, call themselves psychics and mediums.
Well said. And that's an important message when we're in changing times.
Yeah.
And it's funny because a friend of mine was saying, I was a young adult in the 60s, and we thought we were living in the roughest time of all. And when we thought that the world had never seen so much um, adversity and so many people trying to figure things out. And then she said, and now, and it's the same thing. The earth goes through cycles. Humanity goes through cycles of change and deconstruction and creation. And so we're always needed, we're always called upon to pull out our insights and bring them to the fore in our own lives. And so you may feel like your listeners may feel like, gosh, I just want to tune out. I don't really want to tune in. I want my peace. Well, yeah, protect your peace, but also be aware of what's getting your attention and how you can be of service where you are. One time I was bringing through a spirit that was giving a message, and he wanted to thank my sitter. The sitter's the client for listeners, for Mama, in case Mama's listening. Sometimes I'll use that as sort of like a clever conceit to explain to people that don't know, but the sitter's the client. So for Mama, my sitter's going, I don't recognize this man. I da 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 da, and he's going on and on. And then he said, I'm only going to stay for a minute, but please tell her she talked to me at the grocery store, and that was the day that I had made the plan to die by suicide. And because she talked to me in line at the grocery store, I stayed just one more day, and then things changed. And she's like, "Oh my God, I do remember that guy. He was so sad." And da, 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 da. And I think of that and I'm like, how many people, Victoria, are out there that realize the impact that they made because they listened to their heart. And in that moment, there was kindness that
Yeah.
they gave. So we're all already making a difference.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. That's an absolute beautiful story. And one thing that you have alluded to a couple of times, which I think is something that a lot of people are experiencing now, especially because we are living in somewhat chaotic times, is when your intuition is turned on really high and you feel like you can't turn it down. And I think some people, especially people that have those abrupt awakening experiences or an abrupt reawakening experience like you had, they feel a little overwhelmed by it. And I think that was my experience too growing up. I think that I grew up in a very chaotic environment, and I think just as a survival mechanism, I kind of had every channel blaring at once. And I often, all of my intuitive channels just blaring and tapping into everything willy nilly. And one of the big things for me that really helped me on my intuition development journey and really helped me to get clear was learning to turn down the noise and tap into just the channel that was most beneficial. So I'd love to hear about your experience with that because I think a lot of people are looking for that support.
I come up with a really quick way. I'm open and I'm closed, but I'm not closed off. I'm balanced so that my energy centers are open just the perfect amount for me. And I use Reiki I used to teach Reiki. Now I've initiated several Reiki teachers. But whatever you do, the best ritual that you come up with for tuning in and tuning out, the best one is the one that you will always use consistently. It reminds me of somebody I knew that sold insurance, and I asked him one time, what's the best life insurance to get? And then he said, the one that you'll actually pay the premium and keep in force. So the same thing about tuning in and tuning out. Come up with your own method and be consistent about it, because your energy centers respond to your intention. And so for me, I turn on the Reiki hands and I sweep my hands from root chakra up. I'm open to receive. And then to close down from the crown chakra down, I'm closed down, balanced, open just the right amount for me. And
Ah,
I noticed that if I forget to do that, and then the closed down part, or it's not really closed, I never really close
right.
these centers. It's like they're just not trying to receive. If I forget to do that after a day of teaching or having readings, or I do a lot of small group readings online, and it's intense, it's like 2 hours of messages. I go to the grocery store, auras are popping in front of me. I can feel somebody's mood and it starts to come towards my energy. I'm like, oh, shoot, I think I didn't do that. Okay, let's do this real quick. And I've asked my guides to keep me balanced as possible. And it's not that they're fixing me, but what they'll do, Victoria, is draw to my attention what's out of balance. And that's where the word triggered can come in real handy. It's all of a sudden I'm real upset about this. I'm like, wait a second, what is this showing me? What is this telling me about myself that I need to notice right now? And then I also firmly believe in healers going to healers.
Yeah.
I firmly believe, having some kind of system set up where, yes, it's great to do your salt bath at home, rinse off and put on your very pure organic rose lotion and all of that. But every once in a while, I want to go get on the table and have a sound healing and have a balancing, because we work hard and we're putting our energy out there. We're very vulnerable. You're spiritually naked when you do readings for people. It's like your soul is bared, even though you're not giving your information out or anything like that. You are so open. I don't feel like I'm in danger or unprotected or any of that, but I could so easily carry it with me. Now, fortunately, with the mediumship and even with the Ask the Spirit Guide sessions that I do, I have the amnesia type of thing where a few minutes later it's gone.
Right.
But, right, I could so easily carry somebody's mood
Right.
with me. So, for you folks that that you're very empathic and you've had experience with this, come up with your own little system and stick with it, because what works for me or works for Victoria may or may not work for you, or it may just be one thing in your toolbox that you do. What drives your balance and your sense of being grounded and rooted, but not pulled down
Yeah.
into a lower frequency, what really drives that is your intention. And so you got to pay attention to where are your thoughts and words leading your actions. And also remember, there are studies that with MRIs measuring the brain, when you're recalling something, your brain doesn't know the difference between you're recalling a memory and the actual event unfolding. So if you're going to keep thinking about something and it's the pattern is, the
It's very
neurons
similar.
they're wired together, right? So you can re-traumatize yourself. So there's just a discipline involved in being a human being, whether you know yourself to be high empathy or not.
Yeah. No, I love all of that. And I think for me, it was really around allowing those boundaries, reminding myself it's not my job to feel what anyone else is feeling. That's not my business. And then
Yeah.
also learning how to anchor into the higher channels,
Yeah.
and just hold that focus. And I find too, all of my readings involve chatting with spirit guides because that's mainly what I do. But I also find that connecting with that energy tends to really just help me stay aligned, right? Because I am
Yes.
anchoring into like such high channels that the garbage, and the garbage is very useful in the human realm, so I don't really want to call it garbage, but the emotional stuff and the baggage and the stories and the stuff that tends to weight us down, it doesn't exist on the other side. So, as I tune into that channel, for me, a lot of times I find it very uplifting and very empowering. But it was something I had to learn. And, I didn't learn it in the first year of doing this work.
No,
Like
no,
it
you
was,
don't.
it
You
was like
don't.
a decade plus, but, before now I can say I'm pretty clean. And sometimes when my energy does get thrown off, then I just sit with myself. I care for myself. I give whatever's triggered in me some love, and then it usually just snaps right back into alignment. But I love that. And I love that too, because I think that, the first intuition development classes I took was about turning up the volume. Because I think some people are so shut down, right? They kind of need to turn up the volume. But I think for people like you and me, and definitely like I needed to learn to control the volume, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
learn to like figure out, which channel I was going to play, and then how loud I wanted it. And so I think it's good for people out there to know. Some of us, that's the trick. The trick isn't turning it up. The trick is learning to modulate.
Modulate. I love that word in this context. And I'll tell you after the near-death experience, which is like it's just made me so open and so vulnerable. I felt haunted for a
Yeah.
while. Nothing ever scared me, but I would be startled because it took me back to childhood where I'm seeing spirits with the objective clairvoyance. The subjective clairvoyance for mama is you see it in your mind's eye, and the
Yeah.
objective, they're a person in the
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
And I mean, just imagine you're in the toilet and somebody's pounding on the door, and you're home alone with two schnauzers.
Yeah.
So it is kind of weird. I had a spirit woman hand me my towel when I was getting out of the shower. And I'm like, this is out of control. So the same teachers that I had gone to secretly to try to tune in and understand my gift, I went back and said, help me. It's on all the time. And one of my teachers finally said to me, well, Susanne, have you ever asked them what do they want? And I'm like, no, I'm so busy trying to get away because I've got to work and I've got a household to run. And he says, just ask them. And I realized that who I was running into just wanted to be acknowledged. I mean, don't we all want to be seen?
Yeah.
Right? We all want to be seen. And I must have been flashing this neon sign, recently stepped a toe on the other side and came back. She
Right.
had abilities before, but now she can't control them. Come on, everybody. And it was like this freaking parade. And so then I got really depressed for a while because I thought when I got the injection that started my breathing and everything was, I'm coming back into the body, I had heard a voice say, your work hasn't started yet. And I was so resentful for a while after that because I thought I'm working pretty damn hard. It was a slap in the face because I didn't know what the work was. I'm working 50 hours a week at a $5 billion company's corporate office. And I'm going to every weekend, I'm going to a weekend PhD program. And you know what that's like. And they're telling me my work hasn't started.
Right.
So, but now see how the universe is. I go back to those teachers and they say, help me. And I have to go and study differently and learn different things and techniques and understand my physical body more and how it works with my spiritual body. And instead of it being fun and games and interesting and let's see how much I can do, it was more like I really want a framework for how our spiritual abilities work for human beings. And so then it opens up to me, oh, this is the work. This is the work. No, I didn't waste all this time before that. It was just getting me ready. I mean, don't you feel like the things that you did? I'll be interviewing you later, but I do want to know now, don't you feel like the things that you did before you embraced this work, you had to have? Like
Oh,
they're helping you now?
oh gosh, yeah. And for me, I was always following my purpose. I was always following my guidance. I didn't have the framework for understanding what it was. Like I didn't get the whole picture. So I followed this career to be an
Exactly.
academic. I knew I wanted to teach. I knew I wanted to write.
Exactly.
I knew it was going to have something to do with bringing, esoteric kind of teachings to the populace. And I knew I was fascinated with like psychology and understanding people and how they perceive and understand and interact with the world. So it made sense for me to pursue a PhD in psychology because I didn't know about spirituality.
Yeah.
Right. And I draw on the work, I draw on the tool set that I got in my first, career every single day. I don't regret a moment of it. And then to it, I think there's a lot of people now that are really grateful for people that can bridge the gap between the established world of, I earned a PhD from Princeton and the world of woo, which I am a full-on card-carrying member, but I can be in both places because for me it's the same. It's just two sides of the same coin. And so I think you and I are people that can show that to people, and we can be there for people that maybe you know that that little bit of science and that little bit of education helps them have a little bit of faith that this is real and this is true. And I'm happy to offer that to people.
Yeah, it well said. It's the experience that you bring makes you a better human, but it also makes you a better servant leader, a better listener, a better teacher. We have so many roles that
Yeah,
we play. And I am a PhD dropout, though. I like
that's all
after
right.
that, I'm like, I did not finish. I'm going to do something else. But I learned what constitutes solid research
Yeah.
and design. And so later, when I was approached by scientists from University of Arizona about, being studied, participating in experiments, I had a basis for understanding why they put me through so much, and why there's what it means, a double blind, triple blind study and things like this. And I was happy to do that. There's a group of mediums that over the last almost 30 years now, I think, have worked with Dr. Gary Schwartz at University of Arizona in his Consciousness Studies Lab. And it helps us add to the body of information around consciousness and the survival of consciousness. And so, what I particularly point to in evidential mediumship is that that particular kind of reading isn't to give you um, grins and giggles about what they come up with and what they say. Yeah, the spirit world can be funny. If they were funny here, they're funny there. The personality survives, but it proves that we don't die.
Yeah.
It proves that we leave the body and we go somewhere else, which I think of actually as home sweet home. I'm not homesick particularly, but I know that it's out there. And so that evidential mediumship, the purpose is to provide survival of consciousness evidence. Now, if it helps heal grief, which it can, it's a spoken a wheel of healing, wonderful, but that's not what it is about. You're working for the spirit that's coming through. And then the ability to tune in psychically to the aura, the energy, to see the past, the present situation, and all the future trajectories and potentials is also very, very rewarding because everybody needs some help at some point in their life to see a broader vision of themselves.
Yeah.
And it's hard, it's even hard for me when I'm in some kind of situation in my life to see bigger, to see, where this is leading. But I've come up with systems that help me to bring my focus back. And so that could be a combination of how I'm eating, sleeping, also my walking, my exercise, my connection with nature, how I treat my skin even is really, really important. I'm real sensitive. If certain things with chemicals get on my skin, I don't feel particularly attuned. And we all have sensitivities like that. So there's a process of self-discovery that I think it's very important to not compare yourself to others in terms of how you're discovering yourself, how you're discovering your abilities and how they're unfolding, but to feel free to experiment, have fun. I find that many times students are so worried about doing well that they can sort of trip themselves up at first and then they relax into it. And, I had them joking the other night at the end of an exercise where they went into Zoom rooms, two together, and they were visiting each other's house and going into the living room and kitchen, and then, psychically visiting and then describing and coming back. Almost every single person said, I wanted to leave the meeting before this started. I wanted to run the other way. And I'm glad I didn't because I got so much right. So I guess I just want to encourage the listeners to maybe bring a playful side of yourself and an openness.
Yeah, spirit is not serious. I think anyone who spends as much time as we do speaking to beings on the other side, your soul is not serious. Your soul is playful. Your soul is happy. Your soul is joyous. Humans can get, we can get a little serious about things in a way that actually can block it, can get in the way. And it's certainly not as much fun, I think, is that when we're aligned, with our soul-based way of doing things. And for intuition, for sure, I think play and joy are actually like my first class, intuition development class a million years ago was like, this is kindergarten, get out the crayons. And it was so helpful and so powerful. It's play. It's play. And when we can see it that way, it just lifts all the heaviness right off of us. And then we can really, re-tap into our soul's gifts. I love all the things that we have been talking about. I am mindful of time, which is going way too fast. So let me just tune in and see what else I want to ask you before we wind down. I love that I loved what you said about like the scientific validation, because I really think there are different things that psychics and mediums do. I've never trained as an evidential medium, and I've never seen myself fulfilling that role. I always say I preach to the choir and I like it. But at the same time, I love the science. And I was in a study too, but it was very different than what you've done. But I love that people are out there validating this stuff. I love that. And, I've talked about this on the show a lot of times, and you probably know this, but the research for every aspect of psychic experience, it's amazing. And the effect sizes, meaning how powerful that research is. I mean, they would blow out of the water anything that I published at Princeton. Like it's remarkable research. So the science is there. It just, and I think it's great that we keep doing it, but the science is there. It's just a matter of people kind of waking up and saying, oh yeah, I believe that.
And I would echo that. And I would say I have a sense that if you were given the task of designing a study around the psychic abilities and intuition, you would blow people away at Princeton or wherever, because my sense is like you are selected and you selected this path.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like it just feels like so many times people will say my life hasn't been organized very well, or I've jumped from one thing to another, or I've quit so many things. And I'm thinking, you're describing the population.
Yeah.
Why do we have to hold on to this? I'm supposed to be following all these steps in life or comparing to what we think somebody else's
Yes.
life was like, and it's really not like that. Have an adventure here. And one thing I would recommend is to journal. And boy, you've probably seen this. Sometimes when I say the journal word, people's eyes glaze over like, "Oh, that again." I've bought so many pretty notebooks and never crack them open, and a specific pen with all these designs, and I'm like, look, it can be so much easier than that. You can email yourself or use your notes app, and you don't have to write down everything like what you had for lunch or whatever, unless you're into food. But you can just journal above the norm, things that happen, signs, symbols, synchronicities, dream visits, weird insights, or they came to you weird, you acted on them, here's what happened, you didn't act on them, here's what happened. And you can go back later and you can see all the patterns and trends and how your abilities are unfolding and the guidance you're getting. But also on those days where you feel like I'm just not tuned in. And I have those days, we get those days. It's like the spirit world and your higher self is wanting you to take a break, or maybe you're getting physically sick or whatever it is. If I want to be uplifted, I'll go grab my notebook and go, oh, that was so cool when that happened. That was so great. Okay, so the mind, and I know who I'm talking to when I say this, so just bear with me because I'm going to talk real simplistically, but the mind will minimize or conflate and inflate, conflate something with something else or make something bigger, an experience that you had 5 years ago, 5 months ago, and you'll question yourself. Did I really think about so and so and then they called me, or did it go the other way around? And so you don't want to overdo it or underdo it. And so making these notes and seeing how things are unfolding for you, I think is really important.
So powerful. It's the first homework I give everybody in every intuition development class I've ever taught, because it helps us reflect. It helps us see how it's already happening all the time. And it's so uplifting and it's so powerful. And it helps us understand how it's uniquely happening for us. And I also want to say, people, you can also do what I do. I don't write it down anymore. I have a little voice recorder on my phone. So,
There you go.
and you can even get that transcribed. So, yeah, so there's lots of different ways to do it, but just paying attention and recording it is huge. I love that. All right, Susanne, I ask everyone on the show. We talked about it a little bit, but I want to ask it as a pointed question as well. How do you experience your intuition? Like, how does it come to you?
For me, it's like breathing. And as I say that, there's something that will tell me, pay attention. There's an insight that you need to tune into right now. And I call it to myself, and I don't know if I've ever shared this, the ragged breath. When I breathe, I'll go to the microphone and see, when I breathe like this, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not that pronounced, but it's that kind of breath where it's kind of ragged. I know, slow down. You're like spinning out of control or trying to do things too fast, or you're avoiding something. Or what could also be happening is your higher self or your guides are trying to get your attention right now, and they're pulling on you. I call it knocking on my aura. And so whatever's going on, as soon as I can, even if it's not right away, I'll stop what I'm doing and I'll do 3 7-11 breaths and then tune in. What do I need to know?
And a 7-Eleven breath for people
7-11
that don't know is
for mama. Although my mom does know what that is, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so breathing in to the count of 7 through your nose, breathing out to the count of 11 through your mouth.
oh, it's
Okay.
beautiful. And
Mm-hmm.
so
And
it's a
breathe
way
through
to
your
slow
nose.
yourself down. And I love that you shared that because it's such a special and unique. I always think of them as intuitive markers. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and they're so different for everybody. They're so different for everyone. And when we have that discernment, right? And we know, like, oh, this is my sign, it's so powerful. So that's so beautiful. So thank you
And
for sharing.
well, and it's real personal to
Yeah.
me too. And I would say also my intuition's always unfolding, but when I get something like that, that really stands out. That's like, Suzanne, you're going too fast. You're trying to get too much done in a day. and you're overlooking something that's important to you, that's typically when that
Yeah.
comes up. And I'm so grateful that I have that. And then there's these other times where I feel so tuned in that I can lose touch with reality for a while. Living alone, being alone. Sometimes I've been in like 9 countries last year, and most of the time I'm alone. I'll meet up with someone here or there or whatever, a group, and I will literally start to see the other world superimposed upon this world. I will see the other dimension. And so I have to remind myself, yes, it's great to be away from home, but I need to be on 3D Earth
Yeah.
while I'm here. Where it's really fun, Victoria, is going to a site with a lot of history, and that's where I do my place memory exercise.
Yeah. It's incredible, right? I used to
It's
do that
so
as a
fun.
child, but I didn't know what it was called, but in the little
Yep.
traveling that I did, I remember
Yep.
just picking up the energy of the place and the
Yep.
stories. And when we were in Greece, our last day, we were rushing, and we were visiting, I think, the Acropolis. And so I was like with my kids, and we didn't have a tour guide or anything like that. And so I started being like, okay, we're walking around. I'm like, okay, this is what I see happened here. And my son runs over to it's like this feels like I see prisoners. And my son runs over to the little boy and goes, mom, this is the jail. So it's really powerful that we can do
It
that. And it's also it's
is.
a fun game to play, right? It's fun to be able to experience all that.
Yeah, it is. I had something that just happened yesterday, which is highly unusual. A friend of mine, her son they just had his anniversary of his passing, and her husband has passed too, and we had been talking about that. And then yesterday, the day after the anniversary, I had a tradesman here at my house, and when he walked in, he looked exactly like her husband who passed. And I'm texting her, going, "Oh, I'm going to see if I can get a picture of him. I don't know if it wants me to, but oh my God, he looks just like your husband." She's like, "Oh, that's cool. What a synchronicity." And he went and he started doing his work. And I should have known. I mean, I'm just clairvoyance is like I've got all the clairs, but that's the one that's just always, always, always there. Later, after he came out from working, the room he was in, it was like a different person.
Yeah.
It was like he looks nothing like this guy. And it freaked me out for a little bit because it was such an objective, clairvoyant experience. And I realized that her husband had superimposed himself. He had transfigured
Yeah.
this man to get that message through to his wife. But this is my home.
Yeah.
This is like cool stuff. And it's a good thing that I don't startle easily, but all of a sudden I realized maybe I do need to get a little bit grounded. That was really cool. But hey, guys, can we have a little talk about this?
Yeah.
That was freaky.
Yeah, I know for me, I don't. I mean, I've had little things like that happen,
Yeah,
but I know for me, I have a feeling as a child, I had the visual sense turned on.
I'll bet you
And
did.
I think that's one thing I've always been very clear. I'm like, I don't want to, I want to see it in my mind's eye. But I
Yep.
think that does
Yes.
happen to everyone to some degree. The other day I was
Yeah.
out walking and I saw a mailbox that was a person for a minute. There was probably something there.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we all can be aware of it. But yeah,
Be aware of it. And of course,
powerful when it comes to you so strongly
yes,
that way. Yeah.
that's it. It's you, and you feel the power and the presence. And it's a presence of pure love when you're in a face to face with a miracle.
Yeah.
Something that shouldn't happen, couldn't possibly happen. But I think it also shows, Victoria, that we can still be surprised. Even with all of our years and all of our experiences, there can still be special treats that we get. And the farther away I get from this yesterday, I'm even more grateful for it, even though it is so strange, so
Yeah.
strange.
Yeah. I think stuff like that happens all the time. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful story. All right. I really could talk to you all day. I really want to, but I can't.
Yep.
Because I want to be mindful of your time and algorithms and such. I know people are going to want to know more about you, and you do some amazing things. Can you share a little bit about just, a
Yeah.
few of your offerings and then how people can find them?
It's carefreemedium.com based on Carefree, Arizona. And if you want to just dip a toe in, every few weeks I have something called satsang, and it's a 2 hour session online. It's very inexpensive. And the first hour, I cover a topic, and the second hour, we go into an Ask the Spirit Guide session. I answer as many questions, even of a personal nature, as I possibly can. I have the ESP Extrasensory People 5 month mentoring course. You will have one on one time, and it's limited to 15 people.
Wow.
I also sometimes do one-on-ones. My current wait time is a year and a half for the one-on-one readings, but you can pretty easily get into a small group reading online. And the book Soul Smart, What the Dead Teach Us About Spirit Communication is, I think, a really good ABC 1, 2, 3 about making your own connection. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to your listeners.
We appreciate you too. This was amazing. It's such a joy. You're such a joy. Is there any parting words that you want to share before we wrap her up?
Do not fear and know that we're all being called upon to be in our community leaders. We're all leaders. We're all leaders because we're coming together to lead with love. The strongest power in the world is love in action.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much, Susanne, for joining us. Thank you, listeners, for listening. So I get to do this. I know you guys are going to love this one as much as I did. And I really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you all for tuning in, and namaste.